What is up, Retro Maniacs? My name is Mike. His name's Joe. His name's EP, and we're here to talk about cards. Today, we're going to give you our top 5 underrated football rookie cards. I'm going to kick the list off with 2001 Drew Brees Bowman Chrome Refractor rookie card. These are numbered to 1999. They only sell for about $200 raw. By way of comparison, now I know Tom Brady's considered the GOAT, right?
Mm-hmm.
But his 2000 Bowman Chrome Refractor, one recently sold in a PSA 2 for $2,000. 10 times what a Drew Brees Refractor. Now, Tom Brady is number 1 in passing, and he's number 1 in passing touchdowns. But you know who's number 2 all time in those? Drew Brees. And by the way, Peyton Manning's number 3. If he throw him in, although he's a little more valuable. People just forget about Drew Brees. 10x, same set, 1 year difference. One of them's numbered, the other isn't. The Brady isn't numbered. How is this? How is it like? I don't understand. Make it make sense for me, Joe.
So I can play a little bit devil's advocate on this. I actually owned one of these cards, by the way, a little while back. And then when I started to like change up my collecting, it was one of the cards that was part of a trade, ironically, to get a Brady. But to play devil's advocate on why it's worth less, not so much less, that's ridiculous, but why it's worth less is all of the rookies were refractors. So this was the base rookie, kind of like that year of Prism 2017, I think it was, where Patrick Mahomes' silver was the base card. So people may look at this and not connect that it's still a refractor and it's still numbered, which again, the Brady is not. So you don't really know how many of those are out there. Maybe it's because he has a Topps Chrome and Brady didn't, so people gravitate towards that. But still, this card should be worth more. Not because he has other cards out there. I don't get it. It's actually a really nice card. It's one of the few that they did the Photoshop.
They're beautiful too. Those refractors.
The shine of those are really, really good. And they are Photoshopped uniforms. He was in his Purdue. They Photoshopped him to the Chargers. Maybe that's another reason. I'm working all these things. Maybe it's because he's in his Chargers uniform. I don't know. I don't get it. Drew Brees, criminally undervalued in our hobby. Full stop.
Yeah, I had the regular Bowman. I didn't have the Chrome rookie, but I have a Bowman rookie card of his, and I like the design, cool card. The difference between a PSA 2 and the raw card is just insane. Like it's just, that number that just makes zero sense whatsoever. Like anybody who's been in this hobby, if they looked at that, they would be like, I don't understand how this works. Like they just wouldn't understand that. And so I love this. And Brees was one of my favorite players to watch. I mean, getting drafted by the Chargers and then going to the Saints. I was so happy when he won the Super Bowl. And he was just from a fantasy perspective. Also, he was constantly just, he would always get you huge points. It's just that was the player he was. He was always putting up massive numbers. And so we've talked before many times about the lack of respect that Peyton Manning gets compared to Tom Brady, but Brees is finished with more numbers and was maybe more, at least as much of a dominant force fantasy.
And he saved the city. Yeah. Like you know, say what you will, but him becoming a Saint really kind of saved that city a little bit after what they went through with Katrina. Like they all looked towards the Saints, and it was a magical year and all those things. So like, yeah, it's disheartening to see him get such disrespect.
And I thought about using Peyton Manning and then Drew Brees. You can go either there, although I do think Manning's cards are worth a little more than Brees, so that's why we went with that. And again, we aren't saying these cards are going to become more valuable in the future. Right. We're just saying we're looking at cards of great players and going, how are they this cheap?
What? This is stupid.
All right, next one I have on the list, Calvin Johnson. Now, here's an interesting comparison I want to make for you. His 2007 Topps Chrome Refractor and a PSA 10 sells for like $350 to $400. Beautiful card. We all love Topps Chrome Refractors. Mm-hmm. It is a Pop 94 in the PSA Pop Report. The 1998 Randy Moss rookie refractor and a PSA 10 is $2,000. Now you might say, well, that's probably because there's more made in 2007 than 1998. But the pop report on the 1998 Randy Moss Topps Chrome is 167 for a PSA 10, where you only have 94 of the 2007 of Calvin Johnson. If you've watched Calvin Johnson play, I don't have to tell you how great he was. He was and Randy Moss, trust me, I think Randy Moss was probably the most physically talented player that ever played wide receiver in the NFL. But Calvin Johnson was like every bit of that too. He was a little different because he was bigger. Moss was a little faster, ran like a gazelle, but Calvin Johnson was just his own unique creature. They called him Megatron for a reason. He was really a robot out there. Like, how you couldn't stop him. This huge athlete running around and doing things that people his size, it just didn't look right to see him doing what he was doing. What a great card. I feel like that's a card that maybe not a PSA 10, but really need to get in my collection because the raw ones were under $100.
Yeah.
I feel like he's incredibly undervalued.
Fun fact, Roy Williams coined the name Megatron for him when they were teammates in Detroit. And he was the third wide receiver in the span of like 5 years the Detroit Lions took in like the top 5. Finally, they got one right. So good job, Matt Millen, on that. And Mike, I just have to ask, these Topps Chrome cards you speak of, are they licensed? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, these were
licensed. Okay, great. This is how good Megatron was. EP, you brought up fantasy football for Drew Brees. I got to make a point about Megatron. In one of our main leagues, our League 3, running backs always were the guys you went after. You wanted running backs on your team. The biggest trade I made that helped me win a bunch of championships was trading a running back to get Calvin Johnson, which was unheard. It's a non-PPR league for you kids out there who don't know why running backs are more valuable. But yeah, so I went after Calvin Johnson, and he was a massive help because he was so good. He was so much fun to watch. The one year, remember, he had almost 2,000 yards. Did he ever eclipse the 2,000? He holds the receiving record, but I don't think he actually broke 2,000. But that was, I believe, also the year that he was short of the end zone by like 3 yards about 10 times. Like, could you imagine the season he would have had if he didn't have the touchdown bad luck? I mean, just unbelievable. And the fact that you can get this card as cheap as you can, again, is just stupid. I don't get it. I love Randy Moss too, and I love that year of Topps Chrome. But again, that's a photoshopped image of Moss. This is Calvin. He's at a photo shoot. I prefer that. He's actually in the uniform and stuff. It's a really, really nice card with the black borders and the little dots at the top, or the little squares at the top. Really, really nice design too.
Yeah, as you guys said, both players, fantastic players, fun to watch, just so much fun to watch. And I think if mossed is like a term you just got mossed. Like if that wouldn't have happened with Randy Moss, it would have happened with Megatron, right? Like they would have made that, would have coined that term for him.
Remember, there were 4 Bengals around him, and Stafford just chucked it up, and he just went up and said, "Screw this, I'm going to take it." Like, unbelievable.
Right. Yeah, he's just such an incredible player, and he's got some really cool cards. I agree with Mike that this is probably one that I should probably get in my collection.
All right, next one is a current player, Derrick Henry. This guy has done nothing but produce everywhere he's played, every season he's played, and unfortunately, he's a running back in the hobby in 2025, so he's greatly devalued. I'm going to take you on a little journey though for this comparison that I'm going to give you. His 2016 Prism Silver, which again, like the Mahomes, all the rookies were silver, so was kind of a base card. He is worth like, let's see, $70 and a PSA 8. Barry Sanders, 89 score rookie card, and a PSA 8 is also worth right around $70.
I know where this trip is going.
We're going to talk about the pop report now. There are 719. PSA 9 is for the Derrick Henry, not PSA 8. I compared the 8 from the Barry Sanders to the 9. There are 719 PSA 9s of Derrick Henry. There are 13,071 PSA 8s of Barry Sanders, and these cards are worth the same. Barry Sanders, he is the greatest running back ever to play the game. I'm not saying Derrick Henry is Barry Sanders, but when you're talking about a card that has 13,000 in the pop report being worth the same as a guy who is one of the greats, probably going to end up being a top 10 to top 5 all-time running back stat wise, when his card only has 719, plus there's only 1,275 of the Henrys graded total, and there's 31,000 of the 89 score. I know that Derrick Henry is not Barry Sanders. I'm not saying he is, but when you look at the numbers, it just shows you how undervalued running backs are today. And that's why I wanted to do this. A guy who was from the 90s, the greatest running back of all time, can have a ton of cards graded and still hold value, where a guy who doesn't have a ton of this card graded, and yes, there are other parallels, and that probably holds the price of it down a little bit, but still, that much of a difference in the pop report, it really shows how, like, there's no value in running backs. I think someday that's going to change.
Watching Derrick Henry play is imagining Jerome Bettis with Chris Johnson speed, right? Like watching someone that big move that. I watched a couple of weeks ago, I was watching Hard Knocks, and it was against the Steelers, outrunning safeties, outrunning defensive backs.
Now, maybe there's some business miles per hour when he gets up there. Yeah,
he absolutely does. And it is crazy to watch him. 99-yard runs. I'll never forget that Thursday night football game against the Jaguars where it was just like he was gone. And it's crazy. He's one of those just unicorns. There's never going to be a player that big and that fast. He runs like a big guy and he runs like a fast guy. To your point, though, Mike, before COVID, they didn't have that many parallels. So it's not as bad. There's probably more, obviously, but they didn't do 90 different parallels.
Probably like 10 or so.
There's probably like 10, right? So it's not that bad. And I'll tell you what, when I watch Alico 3, he does not do a lot of modern players in terms of grading reveals, but he talks about Derrick Henry and he talks about Alvin Kamara as two guys that he thinks are criminally undervalued. So when someone who mostly grades late 90s, early 2000s stuff is grading their stuff, you kind of know they've got to be special backs. So yeah, he's not Barry Sanders, but that's not a bad thing because of how good he is in a totally different way.
I think this is one of the things we've addressed before is like you put Dan Marino in today's game and think about the numbers he probably would have put up. Derrick Henry is a throwback to the running backs from that era, even though he's playing now and with the rules all set up for the passing game, which makes what he's been able to do even more impressive. I mean, it shines a brighter light, I think, on his talents and the skill set. And so to have his rookie card be as cheap as it is, again, that just it is an example of how the hobby is just so hyper focused on quarterbacks that they forget about
this. That's a nice design card too.
Yeah. So like I hope Mike is correct in saying when he says that they're going to be worth more someday, because especially King Henry, like especially his cards, like he's going to be remembered as one of the all-time greats for sure.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really good running backs. Again, the league is kind of tilting back toward running the ball more, and these guys can be bought like at a fraction of the cost of all the quarterbacks. I don't give a lot of investment advice. I don't know if it's investment advice, but don't be afraid to pick up running back cards. If they're a great player, they're a great player. They're a defensive player, they're a running back, they're a tight end, whatever they play, buy the cards. They're relatively cheap. So, all right, I'm going to stick with running backs here. Next one is old Frank Gore. Do you remember Frank Gore? Wow, what a great career he had. His rookie we're going to go with the 2005 Topps Chrome Refractor rookie, and a PSA 9 over $75. What a great card. I feel like I need that card too. This list is going to cost me money because it made me realize I need some of these. Now, I'm not going to compare him to another running back. I'm just going to compare him to somebody else in the same set. Aaron Rodgers, great quarterback. Absolutely. He's an all-time great. His rookie refractor in the same set is worth $1,000. So it is over 10 times, closer to 11, 12 times the value of Frank Gore. And yes, he's a quarterback. We have the quarterback running back disparity here. But Frank Gore is the third leading rusher of all time. He is a Hall of Famer to be as soon as when he's eligible. Aaron Rodgers, great. He's a quarterback, yes. But this much of a difference in the same exact set just doesn't make any sense to me. Joe, make it make sense.
And this set in a 9, for that to be so low, this set is notoriously off-centered.
Yeah,
like even the 10s are off-centered, and they just kind of let him slide by. So, and this is another one where the refractors are absolutely beautiful. This is how great Frank Gore is. When we were talking about this topic the last couple of days, and we were kind of talking about which players to put in, I even put a Pitt guy aside. I said, no, let's talk about Frank Gore because he is so criminally undervalued. So I was willing to put my favorite Martin aside to talk about Frank Gore and how great he was. I just got it before I let EP wax poetic because he's going to.
He's the big Frank Gore.
He is the Frank, the big. He even collects his cards in college uniforms. That's how much he loves Frank Gore.
That's cool.
But our buddy Silver Sport, right, Ed and Chuck, they've been pulling Frank Gore Jr. cards, and I think it was Ed goes, I'm pretty sure this is just Frank Gore. And he just wants to play some more because that's how big of a workhorse he was. So that's such a great line. It stuck with me. And he did it for so long for different teams, and he was always really, really good when he's
still sitting by his phone waiting for it to ring.
Waiting for that phone call.
There's an injury. Am I gonna go?
Yeah, man, workhorse is the word, right? Like the thing is, like when I remember with that same League 3 that you were talking about earlier, Joe, that in that league, I tried to trade. I had the pick. I think it was like almost the first pick.
Tried to trade? First off, breaking news.
When it was way back in Frank Gore's rookie year. But I had like one of the top 3 picks. It might have been the first pick. And I asked the guy who had Kevin Barlow, do you want to trade for this pick? Because I'm going to take Frank Gore. And that person did not want to trade. So I picked Frank Gore. And then he remained on my team for 1,000 years. Because he was productive for 1,000 years, right? Yeah. For all these different teams, and like the big scare coming out of college was always got 2 reconstructed knees, all this and that. But he like very, very rarely was he hurt. He was just a consistently really good player, and just had this amazing career. And like you said, Mike, ended up finishing 3rd all time in rushing like that. I mean, he's on. I mean, that puts him in the conversation for the Mount Rushmore running backs, and like he should definitely be in there for his card to be worth that little compared to Aaron Rodgers, who's not on the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. He's a great quarterback from this generation, but he's not there. Right. Like that just says a lot about the difference between quarterbacks and running backs.
2 real quick points, Mike. One, for EP to collect someone not in their college uniform and talk about trades involving Frank, that's how important Frank Gore is. Another quick thing, Kevin Barlow went to Pitt. Hail to Pitt.
All right, before we get to the last one, if you're watching, you made it this far, first of all, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't, but let us know what rookie card of a football player you think is undervalued. We love reading the comments. We love reacting to it. But our last one here, I like this one a lot because it is Tony Gonzalez. He is the best tight end that has ever played. No disrespect, Travis Kelce, but Tony Gonzalez was doing Travis Kelce stuff long before Travis Kelce was doing it. His SP rookie card and the PSA 9 is only worth $45 to $60. Tight ends don't seem to get any love in this hobby. We talked about running backs being devalued because of the quarterbacks. Nobody ever talks about tight ends really outside of Travis Kelce. And to make an example of that, from the same set, the SP rookie card of Walter Jones, an offensive lineman, Yes, great offensive lineman, but he's an offensive lineman is worth $160 to $200 in the same grade
Crazy.
as the Tony Gonzalez that is worth 45 to 60. Out of all the things I've talked about today, this is the one that just does not make sense. I can't compute. Walter Jones had other rookie cards. Maybe if the SP was his only rookie card, I could maybe understand it. But he has other rookie cards. He was in most of the sets too. Why in the world would he be worth 4 to 5 times what Tony Gonzalez, the best player at his position, an offensive skill position? I don't know, Joe. I've been pleading to you the whole show. Make it make sense.
I haven't been able to. I mean, so a couple of things about Tony Gonzalez. So this is how good you said, all deference to Travis Kelce and how great he is. This is how good Tony Gonzalez is. When Travis Kelce broke his record for Chiefs touchdowns, he recreated the dunk. Yeah. Was totally okay getting a 15-yard penalty, and I just looked it up, got fined $15,000 to do it. That's how much Tony Gonzalez meant to him as a player and as a tight end. Like, there are certain players at certain positions that other players look towards as like, I want to achieve that. Before Gonzalez, it was probably Mike Ditka at the tight end position held a bit, right? So, like, I mean, I appreciate that Walter Jones gets love, but I more than Tony Gonzalez. I mean,
he deserves his spot.
He does,
and I like it that offensive lineman gets notoriety, and he was one of the best.
Yeah,
but Tony Gonzalez was the best,
right?
More like at a skill position. So,
yeah, if you went up to someone who's like mildly a football person and said, hey, who are the top 5 tight ends? They put Tony Gonzalez in that list. I don't know if anyone's saying, give me your top 5 offensive linemen. Again, no offense to them, but if they do, maybe it's just whoever you know from your team. It might not even be Walter Jones because, again, offensive linemen, not that well known. So it's shocking to me.
Yeah, I made that Mount Rushmore reference earlier, and like Tony Gonzalez is the first person you talk about. Like, he's for pretty much everybody, the first person you talk about, and offensive lineman, and maybe the Walter Jones is the right price, but the Tony Gonzalez is just completely that has no oh my gosh, I have no words. Exactly. I am so upset by how
I feel about it.
So upset about how cheap the Tony Gonzalez rookie card is that I can't find words to describe it.
I totally feel that. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, and I love this comparison is also like probably my favorite one out of all of them, because like you can get this guy who even when he went to the Falcons toward the end of his career, I remember having some great games, that sort of stuff then too. So I mean, like, he's just like, he's such an iconic player for those of us who watch football at that time. And for him not to be, for his card to not at least be not even half as much as the Walter Jones one, it's almost criminal. Like,
the Falcons went and got him to help Matt Ryan, a rookie, become a pretty good an MVP player. That's kind of crazy to think about.
All right, well, there you have it. That's our list. And you know what? Don't fight me if you want to say Travis Kelce is the best. I'll allow it because he's great too. It's clearly he's still playing though. I don't want to give somebody the best of all time till they're done. But I'm not going to fight you in the comments. So yeah, but let us know what player you think is undervalued at football and the hobby. Just let us know. We like to hear your thoughts. That was a fun show, guys. That's all.
Sure. It was great.
Yeah.
Should we do it again next week? We'll do another video.
1 week from today. Let's do
we'll
1 week
on
from
Friday.
Yeah.
We'll do one podcast on Monday. Sounds good. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Take care, guys.
See you, boys.
See you.